Hello everybody and welcome to the Roznama daily newspaper analysis. Okay, now today the newspaper is absolutely full of the Bangladesh elections. We have been covering this for quite some time now, for the past 2-3 days as well. So today we'll do this very briefly. It is up to you to read the articles entirely today. Very basics that we'll be talking about in this is that these elections have been undertaken or were due since last year's July revolution. Okay, I'll be writing the terms that you have to keep in mind. July revolution, and this July revolution was basically the entire protest that the Gen Z population of Bangladesh undertook against the then government of Bangladesh, which was led by Sheikh Hasina, and her party was Awami League. Okay, after this protest, Sheikh Hasina fled Bangladesh to save her life, and as of now, she is staying in India under the Indian government's protection, seeking asylum. She is being called back by Bangladesh to she has been sentenced to death because of all the major curbing of the suppression of the protests that took place in Bangladesh, which resulted in a large number of people losing their lives. So for that, she is being called back to India, and Bangladesh is undertaking extradition of Sheikh Hasina from India. But as of now, the Indian government is not agreeing to send her back. Okay, this is one thing that you have to keep in mind. Now, because the revolution took place in July, that is why it is known as the July Revolution. And after the July Revolution, an interim government was established in Bangladesh. Okay, an interim government was established, and this government was established under Muhammad Yunus. Okay, Muhammad Yunus is as of now leading the government of Bangladesh, and he had said that after elections are successfully undertaken and whosoever wins the election, he will readily transfer power to that particular party. Okay, and also the interim government proposed to bring certain changes in the Bangladesh political structure, just to make or to prevent too much of concentration of power in the country's executive, that is the prime minister. So you just wanted to ease out concentration of powers in the prime minister's hand, in the executive's hand. And for this, because the revolution took place in July, this new change also has been termed as, or this amendment to the constitution has also been termed as, the July Charter. Now, this July Charter will be implemented after a voting is undertaken in the country, and this voting will be put in front of the general citizens of the country, and the general citizens are going to vote on this July Charter. Okay, and this process of taking direct opinions of the population of the country, the general citizens of the country, on any particular issue is an instrument of direct democracy. Okay, it is an instrument of direct democracy, and the instrument that they are going to use is that of a referendum. Okay, so these are certain things that you have to keep in mind with respect to the basics of the backstory of the elections. So now the elections took place on the 12th of February. In the elections, there were two major contenders. One was the Bangladesh National Party, and one was Jamaat-e-Islami. Okay, now the elections have been won by Bangladesh National Party, and Jamaat-e-Islami has formed the opposition government, and Jamaat-e-Islami is naturally an alliance of one major party and 11 other political parties. All right, now BNP is the party. The chairman of BNP is Tariq Rahman, and he is the son of the erstwhile Prime Minister of Bangladesh, who recently passed away, Khalida Zia. Okay, all right. So BNP has won this election and has been declared as the party which is going to form the government there. All right, and as promised by the interim government and its leader, they are going to readily transfer power to BNP. They're also going to undertake referendum voting on the July Charter, and the necessary changes would be accordingly made. Okay, so this is everything that you have to keep in mind with respect to Bangladesh. One more thing, that Awami League, the party to which Sheikh Hasina belonged, was declared illegal and was not permitted to contest elections in Bangladesh. And Sheikh Hasina has naturally fled the country, and other political party, other members or other politicians of the Awami League, they were also forbidden to contest elections. All right. Okay. The same thing that BNP has come to power. All right. Yes. Okay. So they have been called, they have voted for BNP, and BNP has come into the power. Again, July Charter has been promised, and July Islami has failed to secure a majority. So you can go through these multiple articles that were in news, keeping all this information in mind. Okay. Now, another thing that I want to flag for you all is the Ganga Water Treaty, and also Hasina's extradition. Okay, so the Ganga Water Treaty and Sheikh Hasina's extradition, these are two things which are actually, will be the priority area between India and Bangladesh now. Achha, now this present government, BNP, has a more forward looking stance. They are not very conservative, and it is hoped that under their leadership the relations between India and Bangladesh are going to better in the near future. All right. And when BNP actually won the elections, our Prime Minister also congratulated the leader of BNP and the party members itself on winning this particular election by this major, massive majority. All right. Now, Sheikh Hasina is in India. Bangladesh is negotiating her extradition. She has been sentenced to death. That is why, because India has had good relations under the Sheikh Hasina regime. So that is why India is a little reluctant to send her back, and actually she also is unwilling to go back to Bangladesh. The second is the Ganga Water Treaty. Okay, now the Ganga Water Treaty was signed in the year 1996, and it was signed to naturally share the waters between India and Bangladesh, specifically of the river Ganga. Why was this necessitated? It was necessitated because India in 1975 undertook construction of a barrage on the Ganga River known as the Farakka Barrage in West Bengal. And because of this Farakka Barrage, there was significant shortage of water that the people in Bangladesh faced. All right. So to facilitate smooth sending off of water by India into Bangladesh, this treaty was negotiated. The treaty was brought into existence in 1996. It was signed between the Indian Prime Minister H.D. Deve Gowda and Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Okay, keep the names in mind. Now, this particular treaty was a 30-year-old treaty, and in 2026, the treaty is set to expire. Because since last year, relations between India and Bangladesh were significantly under upheaval, that is why no renegotiations on the treaty could take place. And now, with the return of BNP, which has a good rapport with India, it is expected that maybe we are going to renegotiate on the terms of the treaty. Achha, one more thing, it is Bangladesh that is at that is going to face a drawback in case the treaty is not renewed, because the water requirement is more in Bangladesh than in India. Why? Because India already the Ganga River originates in India, and India already satisfies all its needs by the time it reaches Bangladesh. All right. So Ganga River originates in the Gangotri Glacier, okay, and it is formed after confluence of two rivers, Alaknanda and Bhagirathi. Ganga and Brahmaputra together they join in Bangladesh, and the two rivers form the world's largest delta known as the Sundarbans Delta, which is shared between the two countries, also known as the Ganga Brahmaputra Delta. And the Ganga River, when it enters Bangladesh, it is known as Padma. Brahmaputra, when it enters Bangladesh, it is known as Jamuna. And the confluence of both of these rivers in Bangladesh is known as Meghna. So do keep all this information in mind. Okay. Same thing, continuation of all those articles. They've mentioned the July Charter. So do keep all of this information in mind. Then coming to the next important piece, Donald Trump in his last term also did make this entire show and kept on giving statements like that there is no such thing as climate change, and it is only a facade, it is an ill-conceived notion, it is nothing that the world should worry about. And in his previous term as well, he was distancing himself from all the climate funding that US had actually promised. In his second term, it was in news just a few days back that USA has already withdrawn from 66 international organizations, some of which are IPCC, the Paris Agreement, and UNFCCC. Okay, also India-based organizations like ISA, IRENA. So all of these organizations which in any way remotely talk about climate change, seeks to address these ideas of climate change, and seeks to fund developing countries to bring about alleviation of problems related to climate change. All of that has been done away with by Donald Trump, because he believes that there is no such thing as climate change. And he's also repealed the Environmental Protection Agency that was established in 2009 to look into matters of effective climate change that the world at large is facing. Okay, also in one of the UNFCCC COPs that was held in United Kingdom, there was particularly talked of term which is known as net zero targets. All right, so I think it was COP21 that took place in Glasgow. So in COP21, all countries who had participated, they were asked to set their net zero targets. India had also given its target as to achieve a net zero carbon emission, to become a net zero carbon emission country by the year 2070. Although COP21 had asked the countries to set this target by 2050, but because India was a developing country and India said that India is going to need a certain amount of time to transition from a developing into a developed country, and this entire transition is going to require India to use energy resources. All right, and one of these resources is naturally burning of fossil fuels. All right, okay. Then coming to the next one, okay, a wonderful article where again we've talked about building ties between India and China, renewing our ties between India and China. And the article, it draws a lot of attention to a lot of things that India and China have undertaken since since many years in history. Okay, the first thing that it says here is the Panchsheel Doctrine. Now, India and China in the year 1954 signed the Panchsheel Agreement or endorsed the Panchsheel Agreement together. This Panchsheel Agreement was signed in Sri Lanka, and it was signed back then between our Prime Minister, Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, and the Chinese Premier back then, Zhou Enlai. Okay, so the two of them together had endorsed this, and there was this massive picture doing the bouts back then where both the leaders of India and Sri Lanka, they would join hands and standing up together, and there was this major tagline that did the news back then, which was Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai. So the CDS is simply pointing to the fact that because the two countries had endorsed the Panchsheel Agreement, and what did the Panchsheel Agreement actually talk about? It said it believed in things like recognizing each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty, also mutual benefit to each other, non-aggression towards each other, like both the countries are not going to wage a war against each other, also non-interference in domestic affairs. All right, so these were various things that were tabled between India and China under the Panchsheel Agreement. And then the Prime Minister believed that because both the countries have endorsed the Panchsheel Agreement, China is never going to attack India. China is not going to do anything which in any way is, going to hinder or take away Indian territory. All right. And also in 1954, India had given recognition to Tibet as a part of China. Then in 1959, when the then Dalai Lama, he left China, sought asylum in India. So he was readily given asylum. Not only was he given asylum, but he and his followers, they were even permitted to establish a Tibetan government in exile running from Dharmashala in Himachal Pradesh. So naturally, this did not go down well with China. Also, after signing the Panchsheel Agreement, our Prime Minister believed that all the border disputes with China have ended. Now, there are two major border disputes between India and China. One is on the western sector and the other is on the eastern sector. The western sector presently is known as LAC, where Chinese troops have illegally occupied the entire Aksai Chin region in Ladakh, and LAC is termed as line of actual control. Here we have two boundaries or lines. One is the Johnson line, one is the McDonald line. Johnson line was signed or brought into existence in 1865, McDonald line in 1893. Okay, now the Johnson line said that Aksai Chin is a part of China. The McDonald line said that Aksai Chin is a part of India. Now, India gives recognition to the fact that it is part of India. China gives recognition to the fact that it is part of China. All right. Similarly, in the eastern sector, we have the McMahon line. And this McMahon line was brought into existence in 1914 through the Shimla Agreement. China says that this agreement was undertaken between the leaders of Tibet, British India and Indian leaders. China was not part of this agreement, so it does not give recognition to this agreement, which said that Arunachal Pradesh is a part of India. Okay, so these are the major border disputes that we have. Jawaharlal Nehru back then believed that because the two leaders, they together endorsed the Panchsheel principles, the border disputes no longer exist. Okay, and that became one of his major fault lines, which eventually resulted in the India-China War of 1962. And since then, the relations between the two countries have seen various ups and downs. The recent one being in 2020 with the Galwan Valley clash. And since then, we've been negotiating with China to facilitate an easing of relations and re-establishment of friendly bilateral relations. Okay, so this is everything that the article talks about, and this is everything that you must keep in mind. Okay, then the next one, again, I had taken this up yesterday. So yesterday, the Prime Minister inaugurated the new Prime Ministerial Office, which is also going to include the Cabinet Secretariat Office as well as the National Security Advisor Secretariat, National Security Council Secretariat, and this new office is known as Seva Tirth, and it will be inclusive of two other buildings known as Kartavya Bhavan 1 and Kartavya Bhavan 2. Now, Kartavya this year is important because it was also a part of the budget speech. All right. So do keep this in mind. And again, this replaces the old secretariat, which was in the South Block, and it is established on the Raisena Hills. The Raisena Hills are an extension of the Aravali Hill ranges. So do keep that in mind. Okay. The same thing, do go through the other articles. All right, now the budget session has come to an end, and the articles, they seek to give you an insight into what all happened in the budget session. Now, budget session is one of the three sessions that the parliament holds. One is the budget session, the other is the winter session, and one is the monsoon session. All right, other than this, the parliament may hold other sessions also, but these three are a must. Okay, all right. Now, the budget session simply talks about, the article talks about everything that happened in the during the budget session, where the leader of opposition picked up a non-published book, which resulted in eventual passing or adoption of a resolution for removal of the speaker of the Lok Sabha. It also resulted in undertaking of a substantive motion against the leader of opposition. And then it eventually moved on to naturally talk about the budget that was presented, and further talking about the passage of the Industrial Relations Code Bill, in Industrial Relations Amendment Bill on the 2020, one of the labor codes that was brought in by the government. Okay, so do go through this article, it's an important one. Okay. Then the editorials, again, the editorials are full of the Bangladesh the victory of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. So they have been giving you insights and various inputs as to, you know, how fair or how is this Bangladesh Nationalist Party is like one ray of hope that India has, through which India maybe now seeks to better the relations between the two countries. So do go through these editorials on Bangladesh. This particular article is again on how a lot of people believe that the new free trade, not the free trade, but the new trade agreement that has been signed between India and Bangladesh is mostly, India and USA is mostly a one-sided agreement where USA is benefiting more as compared to India. And how is US benefiting more? Firstly, that they have imposed a reciprocal tariff of 18% on India. Second thing, India has agreed to reduce tariff duties on a large number of agricultural imports, which may negatively impact the Indian farmers. The third thing that it seeks to draw our attention to is that India has promised to purchase $500 billion worth goods from USA in various sectors, be it defense, be it energy, etc. And in return, we've been promised very meager facilities from USA. Okay, so the article gives you an insight as to how maybe the trade deal is very, very skewed in favor of USA and less in favor of India. Okay, then again another article on Bangladesh elections, and naturally considered a new dawn. Why? Because there were major political upheavals. There was no legitimate government put in place. The entire political structure was uprooted. Now we have the July charter to be invoked, to be brought in through through a referendum, which will naturally maybe bring relief to the people of Bangladesh. Okay, so another article on the same lines, also one of the articles which draws criticism to the fact that the United States of America has finally brought into existence its entire idea that there is no such thing as climate change, as has been proposed by Donald Trump many years back in his previous terms as well. Again, an article on Bangladesh. Okay, now this particular article, a good contrasting article, which actually talks about that everything that Trump has done in Venezuela, under the pretext of maybe the Venezuelan government not being a legitimately elected government, usurping power by force, the Venezuelan president running a drug cartel in Venezuela. Because of unemployment, inflation, poverty, a large number of Venezuelans, they started crossing the border, entering into US illegally, majorly adding to the migration crisis in USA. So given all of these reasons, he undertook this entire operation Absolute Resolve, a military operation just to capture and take up remove the present government, and as of now trying to establish a government under Dolce Rodriguez, which naturally is believed to be in favors of the United States of America. And everybody knows that the real reason for this Venezuelan take-up is only more access to energy resources. All right. Now, when we talk about energy resources, there is one thing that attracts the United States of America the most to the West Asian region, and that is oil. All right. So since 1954, when the United States of America and Iran had signed a trade deal known as not a trade deal, it will be wrong if I call it a trade deal, a consortium agreement, under which the US very conveniently had sought permission or taken permission, forced permission out of the then monarchy of Iran, the Shah Pahlavi regime, where the monarchy had agreed to allow or permit US oil explorers to harness oil from Iranian oil resources and in return and sell it off in whatever markets that US wanted to. And in return for this, US had promised Iran a royalty fee, which naturally resulted in a lot of inflation and unemployment, poverty in the country, because it was only benefiting a few people in the country of Iran. And also under the influence of United States of America, the Iranian monarch also undertook massive westernization and secularization of Iran, which again did not go down very well with the conservatives in Iran, which eventually resulted in the Iranian Revolution of 1975 and establishment of a diarchical government in Iran under the president presently being Masoud Pezeshkian and a supreme leader known as Ayatollah. The title Ayatollah means supreme leader, and as of now we have the second Ayatollah. The first one was from 1979 to 1989, and presently we have the second one. Okay, now everybody knows that for the past few days Iran and USA have been giving contrary statements against each other. US is threatening to launch a war on Iran. Iran is also, ready, giving statements like Iran is absolutely ready to retaliate and Iran is not going to stoop down under pressure, etc. Now here, the article talks about that everything that Donald Trump has actually done in Venezuela to get things done as per his own whims and fancies may not work this effectively in Iran. Okay. So, because now whatever demands that US has on Iran, like Iran can't undertake nuclear enrichment, they have to limit their nuclear enrichment, and major economic sanctions have been imposed on Iran by USA, and then eventually if US wants to undertake a massive military attack here, Iran is naturally not going to face it very passively, and there will be active involvement of Iran and its military against USA. Okay, so do go through this article. This is an important one. Now, another article which again talks about why the general caste people must not protest against the UCG regulations, and where the general category people, they started believing that it was a privilege that was given to the people belonging to the lower caste, the SC, ST, OBC community, and maybe because the discrimination term was left very open-ended and they did not give a concerted a meaning as to what discrimination can entail. So the general category children did make a protest saying that maybe this entire open-ended interpretation of discrimination may not go down well in their favor, and they might be penalized for things that they've not actually done. Okay, so do go through this one. Again, another article on Bangladesh victory. You all can read it absolutely. All right. Another thing that I wanted to flag was Sarojini Naidu. Yesterday's session also I had taken it up for you all. So 13th of February, we have the National Women's Day in India. All right. And we celebrate this National Women's Day to commemorate the birth anniversary of Sarojini Naidu, which is also known as the Nightingale of India. This title of Nightingale of India to Sarojini Naidu was given by Mahatma Gandhi. All right. Okay. Now, the Gift City has got a new chairman. Do remember his name, Uday Kotak. And the Gift City, it is Gujarat International Finance Tech City, which is situated in Gandhinagar. It was first visioned in the year 2007-8 and then finally established in 2015. And the purpose of this establishment is to provide certain tax reliefs to international companies, etc., to set up businesses and undertake FDI and FPI investments in the country. All right. So do go through this, and then again another very small piece of news that yesterday, today's 14th, yes, 13th of February 2024, President's rule was imposed in the state of Manipur. Yesterday it completed 1 year, and before the completion of 1 year, a new government was put in place in Manipur. So now the top court, Supreme Court, has asked CBI to submit a report on the entire Manipur ethnic violence that took place. Okay. That was all for today's newspaper analysis, and I'll see you tomorrow with tomorrow's paper. Thank you. Happy learning.